Hi boys and girls, today we're going to begin lesson 1 in our sketchbooks. So as you can see here, this is my sketchbook space that I'm going to be using. We want to be using our sketchbook kind of in sections, so this is going to be the first section you're going to be using. We don't want to use the whole page, so when we talk about our first shape, we're not just going to draw it in the middle of the paper. Be really thinking about your space so we can save space so we can use all the pages for the lessons. There are 30 lessons, so we want to be using the pages sparingly. Okay, so our first lesson we are going to do is the sphere. So at the top of your notebook, sketchbook, lesson 1, the sphere. So go ahead and write that at the top. And just thinking imaginary line, we're going to be drawing on the top third. So if you think about your page being divided into 3, we're going to be using this top third for this part. So we're going to use this 2/3 and then this 3/3 later on. So the first lesson we're going to be doing is the sphere. And before we begin, we want to talk about that learning how to draw is controlling the light in our picture. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how to identify our light source and where that is, and where to shade our objects in the drawing. So we're going to start by drawing a 3-dimensional sphere. Okay, so our first step is to use our pencil to draw a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, and then I'm going to ask you guys to draw after I do it. So first you're going to watch me. So I'm just going to draw my circle. Now you can see that I'm kind of using sketch lines to make a round circle, and I'm going to stay up in this top third of my page. This isn't a perfect circle. You're not expected to make a perfect circle. Don't stress if your circle looks like an egg or a squished blob. Just put your pencil to the paper and draw the circle. So go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to ask that you pause here. Okay, so draw your circle, or you've drawn your circle. Don't stress, draw loose and sketchy, no problem. Step 2 is determine where your light source is. What's a light source? How do we determine where a light source is? Oh no. Okay, so let's not stress about that and think about what I'm asking. So to draw a 3-dimensional picture, we need to figure out what direction the light is coming from and how it's hitting our object. Then we're going to apply shading, which is a shadow opposite from that light source. Okay, so let's say our light source comes from here. So we're going to draw our light source. So I kind of draw like a light like this. You can also draw a little lamp shades shining down light. So this is where the light is coming from. So here is where our light is coming from. This is our light source. You do not have to write these words. I am just writing them so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's our light source. And then when we think about our light source, we're thinking about the lines that are, what's happening with the light. So the light is going to be casting the brightest part right here. Where it's going to be darkest is going to be right here. And really dark is going to be on the surface right here because that's the shadow that it's casting. So to get a dimensional object is to have a light source, which is here, and then a cast shadow, which I will show you right now. Which is the shadow that's being cast. So this is our cast shadow. It's the shadow that's being cast from the light. So already we can kind of see that we have sort of a 3D object with just having these two basic things, by having a light source and a cast shadow. Okay, of course there's a lot more to it than that, but these are the two things that we're going to start with. So just remember 2 points: position your light source and cast a shadow on the ground. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so now we're going to do some scribble shading. So scribble shading is where you're just kind of scribbling a bit darker on the edge, farthest from the light source. So as we do our scribble shading, we're going to shade lighter as the shading curves go up towards the light source. So as the light, and again, I'm going to show you right now, and then you can pause and come back to that and come back to actually doing it. But I'm going to start by shading really, really dark down here. And scribble shading is just kind of like scribbling, literally just scribbling. And it's darkest right here. And as my shadows, or as my light gets brighter, because there's less light, I'm going to be shading lighter. So this is going to be a little bit lighter as I go up towards the light. So it's a little harder to see with the iPad, but the idea is that this is the darkest it's going to be. This is your 5 on a value bar. And then as it gets more towards, and then you can even do like the cross hatching where you really get over here. Then as it gets toward the light, it gets lighter and lighter. So this is actually going to be even lighter. It's harder to do with this, but you kind of get the idea. You can also use, after you're done shading, you can go ahead and use a pencil or your finger to blend in. So go ahead and pause here and shade. Okay, so your object should look like this. Remember, messy scribbling is okay. So I'm just going to write a couple notes down for you guys. You do not have to write down these notes, but I just want to show you right here, messy scribbling is okay. Okay, so you're going to scribble darker so a couple things. Remember, you're going to scribble darker on the place that's farthest away from the light. Scribble lighter and lighter as we go towards the light. And voila, we have turned a scribbled circle into a 3-dimensional sphere. Okay? All right. Next lesson, we're moving right along. We're going to use the second third of our sketch pad to make overlapping spheres. So the overlapping spheres is drawing 2 circles that are overlapping each other, literally what it says. So space permitting, which we have, we're going to use the same sketchbook page. We're going to draw a circle. So keep in mind that you want to kind of use this space for other stuff. We're going to try to just use this third. So using this third, oops. I'm going to draw a circle. Okay, go ahead, pause here, and draw a circle. Okay, after we do that, we're going to draw a second sphere behind the first one. How do we do that? So as we're drawing this second sphere, we're going to be using 3 new drawing laws right now. So the first law we're going to be using is size. So in order to make objects larger, we're going to draw objects larger to make them look closer. So anything that is farther away is going to be smaller. So I'm going to be drawing, a smaller little circle behind, not that much smaller, but a little bit smaller than this first one, because it is behind it. Okay, it's also going to be up just a little bit higher. So if you notice right here, see how it's up a little bit higher than this one? If this was on a surface, this one's up just a little bit higher than that. Okay, so you're going to want to have the placement of the circle a little bit higher. Also, we're doing overlapping here. Overlapping means we're drawing objects in front of the other, but we're partially blocking the view of the other object behind it. So notice that we don't have the entire circle right here. We only have part of it. That's called overlapping, where you can't see the entire object, but we know that it's behind it. We draw it tucked behind other object to make them look farther away. All right, so go ahead and draw your second sphere, making sure that this circle is a little bit smaller, it's placed a little bit higher, and it's not showing the whole entire object, it's only showing partial view. Okay, go ahead and do that. Pause here. Okay, we're ready to move on. We're going to draw our light source. So again, remember that our light source is going to go up in this corner. It's shining down onto our spheres. Okay, so remember, as this light is shining down, it's casting a shadow onto our objects, and at the shadow, as it goes off to the side, if it's on the ground, it goes in the direction opposite of the light. So if I'm looking at the opposite direction of the light, if my light's shining down, my shadow is going to be right down here. So you want to be like drawing like an imaginary straight line down from your light source where it's going to be going. And that's where we're going to be drawing our cast shadow. So pretend that we have a ruler, and that with this ruler, if we were to take it and hold it against this, there would be an imaginary straight line. So if there's a straight line coming down, here's where the shadow would be. So the cast shadow is really quite important in the direction that it is. So I'm going to be drawing that cast shadow. You can go ahead and draw yours too right now. I'm not going to pause. You can pause as you need to, but remember, this is going to be the darkest black with your pencil that you can get. And it's nice with a pencil, you can really get pretty dark. Okay, so that is going to be our, now I'm thinking, okay, so if this light's shining down, that's where my shadow is going to be. It's going to cast off from right here. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to separate the objects in our drawing by drawing a dark defining shadow in between the two spheres. This is called a nook and cranny shadow. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So we like to call this a little nook and cranny shadow because it's the little tiny shadow that kind of separates the two objects. Okay, so that's going to be pretty dark right there. Go ahead, pause here, and you can go ahead and draw that little nook and cranny shadow. Okay, so after we've drawn the nook and cranny shadow, then we're going to hold our pencil loosely and scribble the first layer of shading in both spheres. So we're going to shade the surface opposite our light source. So let me show you what that means. Whoops. Oh no. Get the pencil back. Huh. So shading opposite our light source. When we shade, we're going to make several passes over the drawing. This is our rough shading. So I'm going to just do a rough shading right now. I'm just going to like, okay, well, this is where the shading should go on both. It's like our rough shading. It's like our kind of our first layer. Then once we do our rough shading, then we're going to go make several more passes over it. We're going to notice that the shading lines below are all lined up away from the sun, but our shading lines don't have to be lined up. So it doesn't have to be perfectly lined up away from the sun. They can be kind of scribbled, but we really want it to be the darkest right around where the light is not going to be hitting it. And then as it comes up a little bit, you're going to have your shading is going to be a lot lighter. So I'm going to do this first one, and then you guys can go ahead and do the second one. Okay, so go ahead and pause here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the second one. Oops, I just was using the eraser to kind of touch out some things. So let's go ahead and finish shading up the other one. Remember, see how I'm kind of using scribbles? Shade however you'd like, just as long as it's the darkest opposite our light source, and it kind of goes up and around. Just making sure it's opposite our light source, and as it comes up to the light, there's less light, or there's less shading. Okay, now we're going to make a darker, more focused shading pass over the spheres. Detail in the very dark edges. So I'm gonna wanna really make sure that I really go back again and really get these edges in. So if you can see what I'm doing, I'll kind of use my little pointer. I'm really gonna get in here. This is gonna be where we're really gonna focus and detail, kind of even cleaning these lines up with, I'm gonna use a really dark black to show you guys, but you really wanna go in. This is just really more to show you. It's not gonna be this dark, but you really wanna go in and really get in right in here and right in here. Kind of like cleaning up that and really making sure that this is dark. So mine's gonna be darker than yours because I'm just showing you with a black Apple pencil, but also kind of like shading it to make it look like it's supposed to. And then you still have these little nook and cranny shadows in here. Okay, so you want to darken the edges away from the light, and you're going to scribble blend shade lighter as it moves towards this hot spot. So the hot spot is this beautiful light right here. This is our hot spot, so this is going to be the hottest. Okay, so keep continuing to shade, make several more scribbles over these two spheres, and then now for the really fun part, you're going to use your finger to blend the shading from dark to light. So just take the tip of your finger and blend. So if this is really dark, you're going to want to blend it, but you want to blend it up so that as it goes up here, it gets lighter and lighter, and right around here it should be completely white still. So go ahead and do that, and voila, awesome job. Look at your beautiful three-dimensional drawings that you did. This is a really great start to these sketchbook lessons. Now think of all the things that you can draw. You can draw eggs. You can draw tennis balls behind each other. You can draw soccer balls and lots of different things just by learning these basic skills for the 2 lessons. Lesson 3 we will complete next time. We're going to do advanced level spheres. All right, have fun, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson. All right, bye guys.